Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today, we're talking with Charlie Mohn, Director of Product Innovation at Drivewyze. Charlie, thanks for taking the time to talk with us.
You bet. Happy to be here, Jason.
Now, today we're talking safety. Safety and driver training is just kind of exploding this year. It's really been an evolution. I think it's a lot of that's maybe been driven by the pandemic, making sure the drivers out there that are running harder than ever. And the other part of it is just kind of that's where the technology has been evolving toward. On the Drivewise world, you've recently announced that you started taking driver behavior into account with your safety notifications. Now, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the safety notifications you had were really route related, or I believe you had mentioned when we were talking before, fleet zone related, that they could set up incident zones or high alert zones where they want those going on. But can you tell me about what prompted you to start putting driver behavior into the mix and how you actually do that in terms of the safety alerts?
Yeah. So great question. Yeah, we see fleets adopting more and more of an analytics-based approach and driver coaching, approach to safety, to preventing accidents. And we launched our safety notification service last year, and have seen really wide adoption from our fleet customers. And to date, Drivewise is, our kind of sweet spot has been around way station bypass service, obviously, and it was kind of just a natural extension there, right, to add in-cab safety notifications to the mix. And what we started with were really curated risk zones around low bridges, rollover zones, as well as steep grades, mountain corridor areas. And a lot of that was just driven through our partnerships with agencies that we work with on the DOT side. And then, but we found that fleets really love that service. We've seen most of the fleets using the bypass service turn on the safety notifications for their fleet. As a free add-on, kind of a no-brainer. But one of the things that we've really, even before we launched it, we wanted to make sure if we're alerting drivers in cab that to slow down in these risk areas, that it actually works. And so before we even launched the whole service, we did a big study, 2-year study with a large national carrier. And we found in that study a 17% reduction in speeding events in rollover curves. It was just focused on rollovers. So really from the beginning, we've taken an analytics-based approach and looking at just data internally. As we've shared that data with fleets, they've said, okay, well, great. I know my top level, kind of how risky my drivers are at a fleet, but I want to kind of get into an actionable level of analytics. So which drivers in these risk zones are the riskiest, which are performing well, which are good examples that we can use and kind of share as a training opportunity with our drivers. So fleets really wanted to get into the data, because I think a lot of them already are kind of looking at data and analytics. So it was very, very much driven by just listening to the market, listening to our customers and what they wanted, and building out something that was really easy for them to get at that information. So what we launched here just this month, or last month already, October, was what we call Safety Plus. And so it's really taking the existing notifications that we have on an analytics tool that fleets can access through our portal, Drivewise Hub, and being able to look at fleet behavior, drilling down all the way into a specific event. So the analytics are sit on top of those notifications, but with this new service, we've also added new, more data-driven risk zones. So a lot of fleets interested in speeding. We all know speeding is one of the biggest causes of accidents. And so we've launched a new set of notifications that's part of this premium service called Speed Alerts, and they're unlike maybe other systems out there. They're focused on alerting drivers in areas that we know have high citation rates, high speeding rates. We know that, and there's not many of them. We've really wanted to curate this down to a small list, but we've identified areas where we know that drivers are speeding, and fleets want to be able to slow those drivers down where it matters the most. Yeah. So
Right.
it's speeding and analyzing speeding data. We've seen a pretty significant reduction in speeding events as well, as we've gone through the beta of that service. 27% reduction in speeding incidents in the zones that we set up in across 3 states. So that's the cool thing, is like these alerts are working and it's actually getting drivers to slow down. It's not every driver slowing down. So that's really where the analytics tool comes into play. Lets the fleets identify who's really watching the alerts, who's responding, and gives them tools to coach the ones that they're not.
I see. Okay. Very cool. And it's interesting that it's a lot of just awareness kind of based from the driver point of view, right? That if you just remind them or ping them, that you can get a pretty good reduction there. Just because, like
Yeah.
all of us, your mind, you're watching the road, you're paying attention, but maybe there's something else you're paying attention to on the road, maybe some traffic in front of you, maybe some behind you. But just that reminder on the speeding, the rollover, it was 17%, right? Reduction in the
Right.
pilot with fleets.
Yeah.
So when you're rolling these out and you're working with fleets, do you have any advice or recommendations for how to incorporate these, or how to really make these impactful for the fleet? I mean, the data stuff, I'm a data nerd, so I love it too, but I also understand that when you start talking about data to some people, that their eyes kind of glaze over and they don't know what it means, and maybe it's intimidating, right? Do you have any tips for how they can incorporate the technology and make it approachable and actionable for their fleet and their drivers?
Excellent question. So, I think you're dead on. There's tons of other tools out there today that fleets are already using, probably around driver coaching, and it might be as simple as looking at telematics data and hard braking, or over speeding events, and really kind of more broad-based analytics. And that's great, but you're gonna I think really what it comes down to is looking at the right type of data and events to coach a driver on. So and fleets are faced with all these choices in safety technology today. Some of them are really expensive and hard to implement. Some of them are really inexpensive and easy to turn on. You've got, obviously, everyone's on ELD that's capturing speed data, so it's pretty common baseline that you can get at some of that behavior data. But dash cams are becoming much more popular. Speed governors and smart speed governors that are using posted speed data are out there. And of course, onboard safety systems like roll stability and collision avoidance, and some of those have connectivity back into a coaching platform as well. So with all these different tools, fleets do have to kind of pick, what makes the most sense for my fleet. Some of that's budget based. Some of that's, what type of truck they have, what type of, what type of loads they're hauling, that sort of thing. What I'd recommend to a safety manager who's trying to think through this, what tools do we use to, really get, in our mind, it's like reducing accidents to zero. And I think that's the goal of a lot of safety managers. How do you do that? It's not just one tool. It's not just one platform. You got to look at kind of a cohesive, system of tools. And I think, where there's a lot of great platforms out there today. We partner with a lot of ELD. Pretty much all of the major ELD providers are our partners, and they have great tools for driver coaching. We see ourselves as augmenting those platforms by allowing fleets to get at information that they don't already have. And really the biggest difference with what we're doing comes down to a couple things. One is looking at an analytics and data is reactive. So you are coaching a driver who's already been in an incident, who's already sped or something that you're going through a coaching program with him on. And that's good. That's important. That's a key piece, I think, of a good safety program. Where we come in with the in-cab alerts is the ability to be proactive. So you as a fleet are preventing those conversations even completely. In the speeding, in the case of like the speed alerts, that 27% fewer speeding incidents. So if you're coaching all drivers who are speeding, that's a lot less conversations that you have to have with drivers, just because it's in the cab. It's preventing bad behavior from in the first place. So I think, to answer your question, we think our service adds to what services are already in place and what other kind of analytics tools are already in place. with the ability, in particular, one of the features we call custom zones allows a fleet to create their own geofences wherever they want across the country. Could be on a road, could be in a yard, could be at a customer terminal, really kind of wherever they want to set up these alerts to prevent accidents from happening in areas where they know from their own history accidents have happened. So we've seen a lot of interest from fleets. We did beta testing with about 10 fleets through the summer, late summer, and the idea is that each fleet comes up with on how they could use that tool unique to their kind of specific situation is kind of amazing. But we've seen, in some cases, it's maybe steep grades that aren't part of our base system, or rollover areas that are on roads that aren't part of the major, network, national road network. Right. And so, yeah, I think, that ability to be proactive is, really a key thing that we think fleets can latch onto on top of maybe the analytics that they're already using.
Right. It makes a lot of sense, that reactive, proactive difference there, and how they can benefit. But I will say, maybe something you run into a little bit of too, right? Fleets that are maybe concerned with having too many alerts in the cab, right? I mean, with advanced safety systems now, with adaptive cruise, lane keep, plus all the devices, like it can be buzzing and beeping and doing a lot, right? Yeah. And so I know I've talked to fleets who said, we're trying to reduce the amount of distraction in the cab. What's your take with them? How can you prove the value of that when it might to them seem like another distraction or ringing bell that they might not know what it is?
Yeah, so I think we definitely look at distracted driving as something we don't want to create. We don't want to create more distracted driving. I think overall 8% of fatal crashes were tied back to distracted driving in both commercial and passenger vehicles. But so we don't want that. And we take that very seriously. So, our approach, I guess, kind of looking back, when we've thought about how do we build this in a way that avoids distracted driving and is really useful for a driver, that actually, affects change, so gets them to actually slow down. Like the three things that are important are: can a message be trusted? Is it shown in the right place at the right time? If you see a notification to slow down, and you're just kind of in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to trust it as a driver. So making sure these are alerts that are really appropriate to the location. They don't want to be annoyed, right? So that not seeing the same message over and over or repeated is really important. It's just it's a known fact that the more messages you show, the less you care or look at those messages. I think we all know that from just opening up your phone, right? All the push notifications and buzzing and so we and then thirdly, like the message just has to be really easy to understand. So if we're we provide an audible alert, kind of a buzz sound chime, and as well as the text message that's on the screen on their in-cab display, and that message has to be really short and succinct and actionable too. So it's we have the ability to have customized messaging at each location, but it has to be really grab the driver's attention. So with that, all of that, I think the way we approach it, we've really curated all the risk zones that we provide as part of the service are highly curated. So on average, right now, drivers only see one alert per day for the notifications that we send out across our entire base. So, I'm sure drivers in some areas might see, 10 a day. Some might not see any. It really depends on where, what lanes you're driving and how risky of a network you drive through. But if it's one a day, it's gonna grab your attention. It's gonna be meaningful. You're gonna pay attention to it, and you're gonna respond. And I think we see that in the results and the data. I think the other important thing is, we avoid requiring drivers to touch the screen. So there might be other messaging tools out there, whether it's a dispatcher message, right, goes into an inbox. It's not really optimized for showing a message while you're driving down the road. Our whole interface looks like a road sign. It's very simple, easy to read, title, message, and driver doesn't have to touch anything. So it just pops up over wherever they see. So trying to avoid any interaction with the device is really important. And then finally, just one final point. We've heard from a lot of fleets, hey, this is great, but I don't have a problem with, low bridge alerts, or you've done a great job with parking alerts, but we don't do overnight parking. We just park at terminals. So how can we turn these things off? So we have, we're working on that right now, is adding in tools for fleets to be able to kind of pick and choose which alerts they want to actually show to drivers, and do that and not just at a fleet level, but at for different groups of drivers. So maybe drivers that are new, you'd want to see all alerts. Maybe they're still kind of learning the ropes. More senior drivers, maybe you don't have to worry about showing all the speed alerts. It's really up to each fleet.
Right. No, for sure. I love that point of trying to create the meaningful message, right? Because it's a balance between, you want it to feel like it's informing the driver, not yelling at it.
Exactly.
Like you can't, because they'll just tune it out, and then it's an annoyance thing. And that's really an interesting study there and how you do that. And I was surprised by the frequency over the entire network. Just one that would be something you pay attention to, and then not having to touch a screen when you're driving. You never touch the right place anyway, and then that's a horrible situation to be in anyhow. So definitely not interacting there is definitely a good thing as well.
Yeah.
Charlie, thanks so much for taking the time. This has been meaningful for me. I've understood a lot, and as you develop more and we talk more about safety and driver safety and improving equipment operation, I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks for the time. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Take care.